Welcome to another episode of the Back Catalogue podcast, and welcome to Spooktober. My name is Apo, this is Vincent, and today we are doing 2020's very own His House. It's Spooktober, Vincent.
I just realised that. That took me a minute to... Anyway, keep going.
It's all horror movies all the time this October, and we are starting off with this Netflix classic. Or is it? Is this the best Netflix movie that there is? I can't find the words right now, but is it?
I mean, one of them has to be.
I'm going to give you the facts. We'll get into it. This has a 6.4 out of 10 on the IMDb. It's got 100% on the Rotten Tomatoes. There's discrepancies here.
Yeah.
There's no budgets or box office. Well, there could be a budget, but there's no box offices because this is a Netflix joint. A refugee couple makes a harrowing escape from war-torn South Sudan, but then they struggle to adjust to their new life in an English town that has an evil lurking beneath the surface. And we're here. Let's get into this, Vincent. Is this because it's Spooktober, so there's categories that you have to hit. There's things you have to tick. And one of those is this a scary film? And the other one is this a good film? And we're going to get into that today.
And most importantly, we're going to answer the question that's on everyone's mind, that everyone has come here, 40 seconds in or so. So we've still got them for another 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Whose house is it?
Whose house?
Who's him?
Who's his?
Who is him?
Who is his? His house.
His house.
And let me tell you, by the end of this movie, you find out.
You find out.
You find out whose house it is.
You find out because it's not, and you don't. I mean, some other less reputable, content will just hit you with it straight away. Like you look at the blue house, it's the bear.
Yeah.
Straight away, they already tell you.
That's exactly right.
But his house.
Well, I mean, Bear's in the big blue house. We don't know if it's his house. That's the thing.
He could be renting.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the whole story here. Whose house really is it?
Whose house is it? That's right.
Let's get into this movie. Vincent, I want to know what you thought of it straight off the bat, just from a general sense of being a movie, a film, outside of the spooks, because we're going to get into the spooks shortly.
Outside of the spooks, just in terms of is this a serviceable film or not?
Strictly his house, is it serviceable?
It's serviceable.
It's serviceable.
It's serviceable. Confirmed serviceable.
I think it's actually quite good.
It's a good film. It is a good movie.
Yeah. Look, I feel like, to be honest with you, I'm going to be real with you right now. This movie, for about 95% of it, is fantastic,
I'll be interested to hear what your 5% that you think is not good, because I wonder if it's going to be the same as mine.
It might be when his comes out. It might be when his comes out.
Okay, well, there you go. We've done it. We've done it. We've come here. We're 3
minutes in, we can roll out.
We've done this for a few years now. We know what's going on. We know the procedures.
But really, man, this is... Because the great thing about it, it's obviously a lower budget film. They're in one space for a very long period of time, but in that space, it is terrifying. It's scary. Man. You feel claustrophobic. They've obviously come, as they said, from some traumatic experiences, and when they go into the movie, you realize what the traumatic experiences are. You don't know if this is mental health or if this is his house. Because it could be mental health or it could be his house, and his is like some sort of, demonic spirit.
This was a really good movie.
It was scary, man.
Real good. Yeah, it was scary.
Yeah.
That first one when he's in the crawl space and then it flickers and then the kid's behind. Man, that got me.
Dude. So a lot of the film, it's this couple, they're trying to come to terms with being in a new space and dealing with the past that they have experienced. And one of the I can't remember their name, so I'm just going to call them the husband and the wife. But the husband,
Rial, was the wife.
Well, Vince is going to hit him with the
Rial was the wife.
We can look at it because we're going to be sitting here saying like Real Madrid.
I can't
45 minutes.
I can't remember what the husband's name was.
Rial and Bowl.
Bowl.
Yes.
I was going to say Bowl, but I didn't want to because I know that's a very common name in parts of Africa.
So we got Rial and Bowl,
and then the other character, the kid, is what, Nyang or something?
Yeah, yes, something along those lines. And there's a man named George in this movie.
There's a man named George. He's a white dude.
And then he's not a white dude.
No, what about the Doctor Who
that's
man?
Mark. That's Mark.
Oh, that's Mark. Okay.
I'm just looking at all the names. I see a man named George. I'll bring that up.
Okay.
So a lot of the film is spent, you know, whether it be intentional redecoration, but the husband, Bo, is doing some redecoration of the house because he's hearing things in the wall. He's trying to deal with whatever's going on in there, whether it be in his mind or whether it actually be in the wall. And throughout the film, there's just him like breaking holes in the wall.
He's ripping up the wallpaper. He's then trying to redo the light, so he's ripping the insides of the wall, and then he's just hammering the wall.
And that in itself is like, because you're thinking like, you know, these people just got here, and what if? And the whole story is they don't want to go home or they don't want to be kicked out of this space. And you know, the movie starts with them coming to the immigration space, and the people are like, "Listen, doesn't mean you're here forever," and they're happy. They're like, "We're going to make this work." And then immediately it starts going bad. So you're thinking like you're getting anxious because of that.
Straight out the gate. Night one.
But then alongside the anxiety of seeing that, you're also just seeing not only a little girl, but also other individuals in the background, people that have been lost, people that died over where they were from.
Because they came over on the boat. You see things, they're all on a boat. It's stormy. Heads were lost.
Yes.
And those are supposedly the people that are haunting them, if you will.
There's a scene which sent shivers up my spine. It was like Grease Lightning. You know, I think that's a line in Grease Lightning. But he's looking around and there's holes in the wall. And I think he's got the torch and it looks, and in the holes, there's just all these people looking back out. And I think about that today, like to this day.
Because I
watched his house like, you know, 3 weeks ago. Because we've been sick, we've been doing all sorts of stuff, we've been on the road.
Because you're looking at people in the wall and you're thinking, is that his house? Is it his house? Is it his house?
And it never got to his house until it got to his house. And I think that was why I don't like the his house bit, when his house comes up.
His house was the worst part of this movie.
Because everything seems grounded in their understanding of the world. Because it's people, but it's just really like they got weird eyes, they got masks on occasion, you know, and obviously you see a random person in your house, you can be scared regardless of what they're looking like. And then you get to his house.
And then he's just some scraggly man that is, that really, it felt like, hey, we're going to do CGI and, you know, we got a budget for CGI and this is what we're going to do.
We're going to do this.
If I think it would have been better if they just didn't have any money for it. They just did all.
If they just had another person.
Yeah. Because
like they refer to it as the witch throughout the film.
The Apeth.
Right?
Which that was such a good, like, that was real cool because towards the start of the film, they're experiencing, Riao and Bo are separately experiencing these, you know, visions or these people in the house, these crazy things in the house, his house moments in his house, which they think it's their house.
Yes,
they think it's his and hers house. It's actually his house. And so Riao's telling Bo this story about basically this man who, you know, is trying to steal, like, he's a good man, but he's trying to steal things because he needs to, you know, get himself out of his situation or whatever, and he accidentally steals from a witch. And then he builds his own house and the witch is in the house. Right, so you're thinking like, oh, okay, yeah. So you've watched this part of the movie. You've gone, okay, they've come over, they've lost people. You know, you're thinking. You also see that they've lost their daughter supposedly at this part of the movie.
That's at that part of the movie. That's before we see his house.
Yeah. And so that plays really well because you go, oh yeah, that's, you know, it's horror, but it's also like, you know, they're traumatized because they've lost people. They've had to come over from a war-torn country. Like you see flashbacks from when they were there hiding from people, you know, just shooting people.
Well, I mean, there's crazy things going on.
There's
traumatizing things going on.
But the fact that you have that story and you have the idea of what you think, you have your understanding of, yep, okay, this is what it is. And then at one point it's like, hey, nah, this girl wasn't actually your daughter. And they just took this kid from someone else to get on a bus, to get on a boat, to get to
where they need to get to.
Yeah, to get to the ends.
And then that kid ended up dying on the boat.
Yeah.
And now they're in his house.
Which that was crazy. When that was, you know, revealed, that was genuinely something I was going, that's nuts.
That's wild.
That's nuts because then you can take it in many ways. The fact that, they literally stole that person.
100%, that's what they did.
Man.
And they used it as means to an end.
To get to the ends.
One of the things I really liked about it was that the husband and wife, Rial and Bowl, had very different experiences throughout the whole film. Obviously, they were all experiencing his house. There was little bits of his house coming through, but Rial had a sense of this is what it is.
She's accepting it. She's accepting it. She's going, we've got to do this because we've got the witch in the house. Mm-hmm. We've got to do what it says. We've got to go back. We've got to basically staying in their previous life. And Bowl's going, no, we got to eat with a knife and fork.
That's right.
Can't eat with your hands.
That's right.
You got to go to the pub. You got to say, hey, pretty couch. He's long. He's tall. He can't kick the ball. That kind of thing. That was hilarious.
That's great.
That was hilarious because he starts singing it and they're all cheering. I was like, this is fantastic.
But even those scenes when he first goes out, he's having fun. He's at the pub singing Peter Crouch songs, and then when she goes out, and that's a scary scene too. Yeah. When she's out and she's getting lost. Because that's terrifying in itself. You go somewhere, you don't have means to contact people.
And she's asking people directions, and they're very obviously...
One of them was George.
Oh, one of them was George.
One of the boys
One
was
of them
George.
was George. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know which one George was, but,
but yeah, they're obviously, pulling their leg.
They are.
And, maybe later, his house was pulling someone's leg. Or just entire body. Let's get into his house. So... His house is just like a witch.
Yeah.
But it was almost like what the young girl from Wreck, not the young girl, but like the girl that had been up in the attic for the whole time.
Yeah.
It was
That's
like
what it
her.
Like. Yeah.
But that was done well because it was through the night vision. It was grainy. It wasn't 100% clear. Whereas this was like
clear.
This was like big lights are on this.
This was 4K Ultra HD.
UHD. And his house was not HD at all. He was not meant to be set in HD. His house needed to stay behind some walls. It was just an interesting.
Yeah, I don't disagree with the whole thing of him going, hey, I'm standing here, I'm sitting here, I'm going to stay awake. I'm ready for him. I'm ready. I'm squaring up. I'm ready to go. And then he falls asleep, and then Mans is saying hey, I need to. He needs to bleed. For the sacrifice or whatever whatever the equation is to get them out of his house out of his house. Mm-hmm. So I don't necessarily disagree with that, but man, when he was there in the sand and they're pulling him down, and then it was just weird. It was just a weird weird scene.
And the thing about a horror movie is the choice of the horrific creature will do a lot. Because you look at a man like his house, you might laugh at a man like his house, that takes you out of the movie.
I was laughing.
Because everything else was scary prior to that. All the people that were in there, all the individuals that you could have thought, is this his house? They were scary. And the reason that they were scary was they weren't, there wasn't any, what's that thing? There wasn't any uncanny valley about it where it was this is not real and I can tell.
Yeah.
They were just real people.
It was a bit jarring also because most of the movie they had that tension where there was no real contact between Bowl and Rial and his house
and Mr. House
and his mates.
Yeah.
There was nothing like that until the end, until that part where his house was there, and it was just I don't know. I think also it took because you're there. He's looking at the wall and you see things in the background and half the rooms are dark because the lights aren't working.
Yeah.
And it's tense.
And you're hearing footsteps.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, where's this?
You're hearing whispers.
Dude,
man, when you hear whispers, that was nuts. Because the thing is, you're hearing whispers, you're hearing footsteps, you're thinking something's going to jump out of you.
Yeah.
You're ready.
When the footsteps got faster at that one point, that's scary. I was like, oh, like that. I was like,
Because you're expecting something to jump out of you.
But they didn't do it often. They did have some, jump scares, but I think the jump scares were done well in the fact that they were led up to where it wasn't just like, hey, here go 3 more for you. There wasn't any of that. It was like this is a well structured jump scare. What I really want to do is next week we're going to do The Ritual. We're going to do The Ritual next week, which is another horror movie because it's Spooktober.
Spooktober.
But specifically, it's Netflix Spooktober because I just thought about that now. Why don't we just do Netflix horror movies?
Okay.
Straight to Netflix horror movies. Because The Ritual, I feel it is the opposite of this film, of His House, in the fact that the film itself, leading up to it, it's mediocre.
But the actual ritual killer?
But the man's that you
Ritual.
see at the end, the
Killer.
ritual, like the ritual,
Yeah.
like that
it was-
makes you think like, wow, this is a movie.
His House, the man's, was similar to the heads that they flash on the screen in Exorcist the Believers.
The heads that they flash on the screen, they're just like girls that are. I think that's just maybe it is.
But I mean,
that's right.
is that kind of feel? It's just like what's going on here?
What are we doing here?
What are we doing here?
What are you adding here? And that's the key. What is His House adding to His House? And the reality is not much.
Not much. It is a shame because really, and look, it could be, you could be, hey, is it actually, are we actually in Spooktober or is it just trauma?
I think that's what's good about this movie.
Take this with a grain of salt. It's not financial advice, but for me, it felt like it was for someone who has not been through anything remotely like that. It felt like a what I would think a good representation of that being to a level.
Yeah, like they got His House coming up.
They got His House.
Like
coming
people
up.
people just out here with His House at their house.
But it.
I know it's an artistic representation.
That's right,
And,
yeah.
and I feel it's a good one. It's done well.
Yes, except for His House.
Except for His House.
Except for His House.
And you know what? This is a serviceable film. It's a short film. I recommend watching it.
Oh man, I love a good 1 hour and a half film.
This was like 1 hour 30 minutes.
Oh, that's fantastic.
This was right on the nose. I
don't
reckon.
need to do a 2 hour movie because it's you start getting going long unless it's like we're really going deep into.
Well, Batman's a long movie. I like that movie.
Yeah, no, I know,
You know
but
what I'm
there's
saying?
a movie like this. There's not a lot that you need to tell.
You don't need to explore too much here. What they did was they did it well just on screen.
They did it well in that they didn't show too much until His House came along, but a lot of it was like I said, the suspense, the tension, because you didn't know what was going on.
Do you reckon like His House should have been the house? And like they stabbed the wall, and then like His House is like, oh,
They try
it's
to go
me.
outside, you just see teeth.
And it becomes Monster House, that movie, that cartoon movie with
Man.
listen. What do you think? Do you think that this for those folk who are doing Spooktober?
To be honest, this is one of the better horror movies I've watched.
It is.
It's one of the better horror movies I've watched.
It's one of the better horror movies we've watched on this podcast. Other than Exorcist Believer, which is now the top of our.
That's
horror
now the
movie
top,
list.
yeah. That's by technicality, it's on the top.
That was His House, and this has been the back catalogue.
That was a 7 out of 10.